Hare Krishna. So I beg for the blessings, special blessings I need today because my conditioned nature is troubling me at the moment. So I need special blessings from you all. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 6, which is entitled The Liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And we're reading from text 14 up to text 48. So I'll start from the beginning, because although there's only one or two very small purports, there's some interesting things that we can talk about along the way. So text 14. Eta chinti bhattacharya achena vashya nityananda darisimha dvare melila asya. Translation. While the Bhattacharya was thinking in this way at his home, all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Nityananda Prabhu, approached the Simha Dvara, the entrance door of the temple. So the verse translation says, while the Bhattacharya was thinking in this way. So how was he thinking? He was thinking about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He'd saved Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from being beaten by the gatekeepers or the chokidars in the temple, because he recognized that he was a great personality. And the last thing he was thinking of was, he considered to himself, the uncommon ecstatic symptoms of Adiruddha Bhava are appearing in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is very wonderful. How are they possible in the body of a human being? So, yeah, he was... I'm going to let you know a little bit about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. There are some verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about him, and also his brother-in-law, Sri Gopinathacharya. So, in the Adi Lila, chapter 10, there's a verse which says, it was talking about, the Adi Lila chapter 10 is talking about the branches, different branches of the Chaitanya tree. And this verse says, it's verse 130 of chapter 10, there was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one of the biggest branches of the tree of the Lord, and his sister's husband, Sri Gopinathacharya. And the purport gives a little bit more information about this. He says, Srila Prabhupada says, the original name of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was Vasudeva Bhattacharya, which we'll come across in a few verses. His place of birth, which is known as Vijayanagara, is about 2.5 miles away from the Navadvip railway station, or Chanpahati railway station. His father was very much celebrated man of the name Maheshwara Visharada. It is said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the greatest logician of his time in India. At Mithila in Bihar, he became a student of a great professor named Pakshadhara Mishra, who did not allow any student to note down his explanations of logic. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so talented, however, that he learned the explanations by heart. This is whole books, not just one book, many books he learned by heart. And when he later returned to Navadvip, he established a school for the study of logic. In other words, he then recited all the books that he'd learned by heart, and they were transcribed like that. So that's pretty good. I mean, maybe he was a Shrutidar, he could just read something once and then remember it. And then when he later returned to Navadvip, he established a school for the study of logic, thus diminishing the importance of Mithila. because of course Mithila, they were being very selfish really, weren't they? I mean, knowledge is meant for the benefit of everybody, but they were just trying to keep it for themselves. So I think it was quite legitimate for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to break this monopoly of knowledge, even though it was kind of Mayavad knowledge. Students from various parts of India still come to Navadvip to study logic. According to some authoritative opinions, the celebrated logician Raghunath Shiromani was also a student of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. In effect, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became the leader of all students of logic. Although he was a grihastha, householder, he even taught many sannyasis in the knowledge of logic. He started a school at Jagannath Puri for the study of Vedanta philosophy, of which he was a great scholar. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he advised the Lord to learn Vedanta philosophy from him. But later he became a student of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is what we'll learn about in this chapter. To understand the real meaning of Vedanta, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so fortunate as to see the six-armed form of Lord Chaitanya known as Sadbhuj, which we have a picture of here. A Sadbhuj deity is still situated at one end of the Jagannath temple. Daily Sankirtan performances take place in this part of the temple. The meeting of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is vividly described in the Madhya Lila, in other words, in this chapter. Chapter 6. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote a book of 100 verses named Chaitanya Shatak, or Shushloka Shatak. 2 other verses he wrote, beginning with the words Vairagya Vijja Nija Bhakti Yoga and Kalan Nashtam Bhakti Yogam Nijam Yaha, are very famous among Gaudiya Vaishnavas. The first one, Vairagya Vijja Nija, is in the Srila Prabhupada Shloka book, so you can look that up. It's a very nice verse. The Gaura Ganodesha Dipika states that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an incarnation of Brihaspati, the learned scholar from the celestial planets. In other words, the guru of the demigods. There is also a biography of him in Gaudiya history of ISKCON Desire-Tree. And it repeats there that he's said by Gaura Ganodesha Dipika to be Brihaspati, who's a very great scholar, of course. But actually he was mentioned in that purport that I read that he was a scholar of logic. The scholar of logic is generally in the school, there are what's called sad darshans, 6 darshans, or philosophical perspectives. And the first one is called Nyaya. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 1st chapter, verse 7, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains something about these saddarshans. I don't know if anybody recalls this, but it's where the sages led by Shonaka Rishi are praising Sutta Goswami, how he's the eldest learned Vedantist, and he's acquainted with knowledge of Vyasadeva. So in the purport, I won't read the whole purport, it's not so long, but I'll just read the essential part. Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commendation on the Brahma Sutra or the Badarayani Vedanta Sutras. It is called natural because Vyasadeva is author of both the Vedanta Sutras and Srimad Bhagavatam, or the essence of all Vedic literatures. Besides Vyasadeva, there are other sages who are the authors of 6 different philosophical systems, namely Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Patanjali, Jaimini, and Ashtavakra. Theism is explained completely in the Vedanta Sutra, whereas in other systems of philosophical speculation, practically no mention is given to the ultimate cause of all causes. And this is the relevant bit. One can sit on the Vyasasan only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy. That's asking a lot. But, so that one can present fully the theistic views of the Bhagavatam in defiance of all other systems. So these 6 personalities mentioned here are the originators or the founders of these sad darshans, these 6 darshans, which Prabhupada says here that we should actually know about if to sit on the Vyasasan. But actually that's a kind of lifetime's occupation to know all these sad darshans, these 6 philosophies. So we'll just actually go through what they are, and if you want, you can study them in more detail at your leisure. But I do have an article by Suhotra Swami, which you can find on the internet, who explains it very nicely. The article is about 70 pages long. We won't go into all that. But we will just actually cover what they are, the names of these saddarshans. Maybe some of you know already? Anybody knows what they are, the saddarshans, the 6 philosophies, which Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam we should actually know. At least we should know about them and what their names are. And there's a, given by Suhotra Swami, there's a little aphorism against each one. So if you can try to remember those, it would be useful. So the first one I've already mentioned. Do you remember? What? Nyaya, yeah. So what is Nyaya? Anybody can say? Basically, Nyaya is the philosophy of logic and reasoning. The philosophy of logic and reasoning. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was expert in that. So, and basically the Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So all these 6 darshans are called ashtic philosophies. It means that they are actually theistic. Asti means it is. So they're considered to be theistic because they accept the Vedas. But actually, really, the only really theistic philosophy is Vedanta philosophy. But anyway, we can't really get into that so much. But Nyaya actually teaches, it's really about actually how to obtain knowledge, bona fide knowledge, real knowledge. So it's not that it's useless, even though it's actually adopted mostly by impersonalists and Mayavadis, and actually originally Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Mayavadi, in the sense of Nyaya, at least, anyway. So one of the things they say is actually that atoms are eternal. And everything is actually just a combination, different combinations of atoms. But then this is taken further by the next philosophy, which is called Vaisheshika philosophy. And that actually is termed Vedic atomic theory. So it extends, it develops Nyaya even further. So those two go together, Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Nyaya is the philosophy of logic and reasoning. And ultimately, the reason why it's not considered by Vedanta Sutra or Vyasadeva as theistic is because they actually rely on logic and reasoning, as opposed to revelation or, Shabda Praman. But it's not that it's entirely useless. It has some use. And then Vaisheshika just develops that more. The Vedic atomic theory, that actually everything it's not actually coming from God, it's actually always existing, atoms always exist. Then you have another pair, you have a word which you've heard of, definitely, Sankhya. Sankhya, this Sankhya referred to is not the Sankhya in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This of Kapila-dev, the son of Devahuti. This is by an impostor called Kapila-dev, not the son of Devahuti. So it's called non-theistic dualism. Non-theistic dualism. In other words, Sankhya divides everything up. It's an analysis. So dualism meaning it's analyzing between spirit and matter. But actually, ultimately, it's non-theistic. And then with that, a development of that is Patanjali yoga, or Patanjali's yoga, which we also actually use. Because, the yamas and niyamas, which are the things that you should avoid doing and the things that you should do, they come from this Patanjali yoga. So Sankhya and yoga, or Patanjali yoga, come together. Then you have Karma Mimamsa. Karma Mimamsa is it's actually used by Krishna in the Govardhan pastime at the beginning to argue against worshipping Indra. So he's saying, because actually all the good results of our activities must come because the demigods, they're forced. They must actually fulfill what we require just by our good deeds. That's karma mimamsa. So it's elevation through performance of duty. Of course, there's a lot more complicated, but if you just want a pithy statement, what it is, karma mimamsa is elevation through the performance of duty. And finally is Vedanta, which is the conclusion of the Vedic revelation. So Vedanta actually critiques all the other philosophies. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, and Karma Mimamsa, and actually defeats them as well, and doesn't consider that they are, or even though they're called astic or theistic philosophy, like for instance others like Jainism and Buddhism, they are Gnostic. They are not theistic. They don't accept God in the first place. But apparently these others they do accept. But Vyasadeva in the Vedanta Sutra actually says, in actual fact, they're not really theistic. Like that. So that's just to give you an idea of what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was into and what he was expert at. So we will continue with the verses. Tonha sune loke kahe anyonye bat eka sanyasi asi deke Jagannath. There the devotees heard the people talking about a mendicant who had come to Jagannath Puri and seen the deity of Jagannath. Murchita hoila chetan nahoya sharire savaboma laya gela apanara gare. The people said that the sannyasi had fallen unconscious upon seeing the deity of Lord Jagannath. Because his consciousness did not return, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had taken him to his home. Shuni sabe janila e mahaprabhura karya hena kale ailatahan gopinathacharya. Hearing this, the devotees could understand that they were speaking of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just then, Gopinathacharya arrived. Nadia nivasi visharadera jamata Nadia nivasa visharadera jamata Mahaprabhura bhakta teho prabhu tattva gyata. Gopinathacharya was a resident of Nadia, the son-in-law of Visharada, and a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew the true identity of his lordship. Small purport. Maheshwara Visharada was a classmate of Nilambar Chakravartis. he lived in the Nadia district in a village called Vidyanagar and had two sons named Madhusudan Vachaspati and Vasudev Sarvabhauma. His son-in-law was Gopinathacharya. So this Vasudev Sarvabhauma is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who this chapter is all about, or at least his liberation. And his son-in-law was Gopinathacharya. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had a sister who was married to Gopinathacharya. Mukunda Sahita Purve Ache Parichaya Mukunda Dekiya Tanra Hoila Vishmaya. Gopinathacharya had previously been acquainted with Mukunda Datta, and when the Acharya saw him at Jagannath Puri, he was very much astonished. Mukunda Tanhare Deke Koila Namaskar Tenho Alingiya Puche Prabhu Samachar. Mukunda Datta offered obeisances unto Gopinathacharya upon meeting him. Then the Acharya embraced Mukunda Datta and inquired about news of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mukunda Kahe Prabhu Ihan Hoila Agamane Amisaba Achi Ache Mahaprabhu Rasane. Mukunda Datta replied, "The Lord has already arrived here. We have come with him." Nityananda Gosani Ke Acharya Koila Namaskar Sabe Mele Puchi Prabhu Vrata Bara Bara. As soon as Gopinathacharya saw Nityananda Prabhu, he offered his obeisances unto him. In this way, meeting all the devotees, he asked about news of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again. Mukunda Kahe Mahaprabhu Sanyasa Kariya Nilachale Aila Sange Ama Sabe Laya. Mukunda Datta continued, "After accepting the sannyas order, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to Jagannath Puri and has brought all of us with him. Ama Saba Chadiya Ge Gela Darashane Ami Sabe Bache Ailan Tanra Avashane." Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left our company and walked ahead to see Lord Jagannath. We have just arrived and are now looking for him. Anyonye Lokera Mukhe Kekata Chunila Sarvabhauma Grihe Prabhu Anumana Koila. From the talk of the people in general, we have guessed that the Lord is now at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Ishvara Darshane Prabhu Prema Achetana Sarvabhauma Loya Gela Apana Bhavana. Upon seeing Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became ecstatic and fell unconscious, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has taken him to his home in this condition. Tomara Milane Yabe Amara Hoila Mana Daive Sekshana Pailun Tamara Darashana. Just as I was thinking of meeting you, by chance we have actually met. Chala Sabe Yae Sarvabhaumera Bhavan Prabhu Deke Pache Kariba Ishvara Darshan. First, let us all go to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later we shall come to see Lord Jagannath. Eta Shuni Gopinatha Sabare Loya Sarvabhauma Gare Gela Harashita Hoya. Hearing this and feeling very pleased, Gopinathacharya immediately took all the devotees with him and approached the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Stanegiya Prabhu Ke Dekila Prabhu Deke Acharya Dukkha Hasha Hoila. Arriving at the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, everyone saw the Lord lying unconscious. Gopinathacharya became very unhappy to see him in this condition, but at the same time he was happy just to see the Lord. Sarvabhauma Janana Sabha Nila Abhyantare Nityananda Goshanire Tenho Koila Namaskare. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya permitted all the devotees to enter his house, and upon seeing Nityananda Prabhu, the Bhattacharya offered him obeisances. Sabha Sahita Yata Yogya Karila Milana Prabhu Deke Sabar Hoila Harashita Mana. Sarvabhauma met with all the devotees and offered them a proper welcome. They were all pleased to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma Pataila Sabadashana Karite Chandaneshwara Nija Putra Dila Sabare Sate. The Bhattacharya then sent them all back to see Lord Jagannath, and he asked his own son, Chandaneshwara, to accompany them as a guide. Jagannatha Deke Sabha Hoila Ananda Bhavate Avishta Hoila Prabhu Nityananda. Everyone was then very pleased to see the deity of Lord Jagannath, Lord Nityananda in particular was overwhelmed with ecstasy. Sabe meli dari tanra, shustira karila, ishvara sevakamala prasada anidila. When Lord Nityananda Prabhu nearly fainted, all the devotees caught him and steadied him. At that time, the priest of Lord Jagannath brought a garland that had been offered to the deity and offered it to Nityananda Prabhu. Prasada paya sabe hoila anandita mane punarapi oila sabe mahaprabhu stane. Everyone was pleased to receive the garland worn by Lord Jagannath. Afterwards, they all returned to the place where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying. Ucha kari kare sabe nama sankirtana tritiya pahare hoila prabhu Chaitanya. All of the devotees then began to loudly chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Just before noon, the Lord regained his consciousness. Hunkara kariya ute hari hari bali anande savaboma tanra hoila padatuli. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and very loudly chanted, Hari! Hari! Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very pleased to see the Lord regain consciousness, and he took the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. Sarvabhauma kahe shigra kahara madhyana muni bhiksha dimu aji mahaprasadana. The Bhattacharya informed all of them, please take your midday baths immediately. Today I shall offer you mahaprasadam, the remnants of food offered to Lord Jagannath. Samudra snana kori mahaprabhu shigra oila charana pakala prabhu asane vasila. After bathing in the sea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees returned very soon. The Lord then washed his feet and sat down on a carpet to take lunch. Pahuta prasada savabhoma anaila tabe mahaprabhu suke bhojana karila. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya made arrangements to bring various kinds of mahaprasadam from the Jagannath temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then accepted lunch with great happiness. Suvarna talira ana utama vyanjana bhakta gana sange prabhu karena bhojana. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offered special rice and first-class vegetables on golden plates. He thus took lunch in the company of his devotees. Sarvabhauma pariveshan karena apane prabhu kahe moradeha lapra vyanjane. While Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya personally distributed the prasadam, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested him, please give me only boiled vegetables. Very short purport. Lafra vyanjana is a preparation in which many vegetables are boiled together and then a chonk is added, consisting of spices like cumin, black pepper and mustard seed. Pitta pana deha tumi inha sabakare tabe bhattacharya kahe yudi dui kare. You can offer the cakes and preparations made with condensed milk to all the devotees. Hearing this, the Bhattacharya folded his hands and spoke as follows. Jagannatha kaiche kariyachena bhojana aji sabha mahaprasada kara ashvadana. Today, all of you, please try to taste the lunch, just as Lord Jagannath accepted it. Eta bali pita paya sabha kayayala bhiksha karana achamana karaila. After saying this, he made them all eat the various cakes and condensed milk preparations. After feeding them, he offered them water to wash their hands, feet and mouths. Agya magi gela gopinatha acharya kelaya prabhu nikata oila bhojana karina. Begging permission from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then went with Gopinath Acharya to take lunch. After finishing their lunch, they returned to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, now the verse. Sorry about that, there's so many. There were actually 34 verses to read there. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Offering his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Namo Narayanaya. I offer obeisances to Narayan. In return, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Krishna Matir Astu. Let your attention be on Krishna. Purport. It is the etiquette among sannyasis, those on the fourth platform of spiritual life, to offer respects by saying Om Namo Narayanaya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Narayana. This greeting is used especially by Mayavadi sannyasis. According to the Smriti scriptures, a sannyasi should not expect anything from anyone, nor should he consider himself identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaishnava sannyasis never think of themselves as being one with the Lord. They always consider themselves eternal servants of Krishna, and they want to see everyone in the world become Krishna conscious. For this reason, a Vaishnava sannyasi offers his blessings to everyone, saying, Krishna Mati Astu, may you become Krishna conscious. Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya, Vaishnati, okay, so just briefly mention the points. Om Namo Narayanaya is the greeting given by Mayavadi sannyasis to each other. So Prabhupada, so therefore, Sarvabhauma was, actually he was a grihasta, but he had taken Kshetra sannyas. In other words, he wanted to stay, he had vowed to stay in Jagannath Puri for the rest of his life. So he was using this greeting. And Srila Prabhupada says that according to the Smriti scriptures, which means the Puranas and the Itihasas, which are considered by the Chandogya Upanishad as being the fifth Veda. So according to the Smritis, a sannyasi should not expect anything from anyone. So basically a sannyasi should always be independent and never expect anybody to serve him, supply him with anything. He has no material dependence. And it's not just for sannyasis, we all have to develop that understanding or that mood in due course of time. But sannyasis are setting the example to everyone else. And it says a sannyasi should not expect anything from anyone, but that doesn't mean to say that others should not supply things to sannyasis, that they should not serve them. But the sannyasi should not expect it. So, like that. Because obviously it's part of the purification process that you serve senior devotees. Nor should he consider himself identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, what Prabhupada is saying is that the Mayavadi philosophy is that we're all identical with the Lord. We're the same as we're actually identical means no difference, which actually is totally ridiculous if you think about it, because we're not unlimited, we're not all powerful, we're not all knowing, or any of the qualities that Krishna has, the Supreme Personality, the source of all sources, of all spiritual and material worlds. So how could we possibly be identical? But that's their philosophy, actually, that we are all actually Narayan, like that. So a sannyasi should never consider that he's identical or one with the Lord. They always consider themselves eternal servants of the Lord. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. Always the constitutional position of the Jivera Swarup is Swarup. Jivera Swarup Hoi. Krishnera, of Krishna, Nityadas, the eternal servant of Krishna. And then, because they're servants of Krishna, they want to please Krishna, and what's the best way to please Krishna? To see everyone become Krishna conscious, because then everybody can be happy. So that, in fact, that's really, in this day and age, the only reason to take sannyas, to become compassionate on the living entities and help them to become Krishna conscious. For this reason, a Vaishnava sannyasi always offers his blessings to everyone, saying, Krishna Mati Astu. So this is a good phrase to remember. At some point, many of you may become sannyasis. Who knows? So you can remember this. Actually, once when I was in Soho Street, Mahavishnu Swami, not Goswami, Swami, English one, he actually gave me a little picture, and on the back it was written this, Krishna Mati Astu, may you become Krishna conscious. So this is actually a good way to, if somebody asks for blessings, you could say this. Krishna Matir Astu. Yeah, so we can learn that, and then that's a wonderful blessing, isn't it? Krishna Matir Astu. I'll finish there. Already late. Any questions or comments anybody would like to? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for the wonderful and very technical class. I was just wondering about this point about the reason that one takes sannyas is out of compassion. And I was just wondering, something I was thinking about was in Srila Prabhupada's time that he saw it that he needed to make sannyasis, but they weren't necessarily giving diksha, which is something that's associated with a sannyasi.
They weren't necessarily
giving diksha, giving Harinam diksha
giving
at that
it.
time.
They weren't giving it.
Yeah, yeah. Which is often associated with the sannyasi. A sannyasi is someone who takes disciples, typically.
Well, actually, originally, Vedically, grihastas would give diksha.
Okay.
In the Gurukul, a grihasta would be the guru of the young brahmacharis from 5 up to 25. And so, I mean, yeah.
So my question was, and please forgive my ignorance about the sannyas ashram, but why would one take sannyas? Why did Srila Prabhupada want to create sannyasis?
For preaching. Because the sannyasi is basically giving up any connection to a limited family, a limited community, and dedicating himself to the whole world, if not the universe. And that is his mission, to preach and help everybody to become Krishna conscious.
And again, please excuse my lack of knowledge, but how is that different to a brahmachari?
Well, a brahmachari is under authority and he's considered a student. Not yet at that stage. I mean, but yes, a brahmachari can do the same thing. Actually, a senior brahmachari can actually do the same thing. But of course, a brahmachari can change back to grihasta if it's necessary at some point. Whereas for a sannyasi to do that, he's actually cut all ties completely and become socially dead, and therefore he's just able. The idea is he's just able to devote everything, mind, body, and words, to serving Krishna. And the best way of serving Krishna is to help others become Krishna conscious.
So is it like a brahmachari has? He still has that lifeline that he may consider changing to
lifeline.
No, I don't want to say lifeline. Maybe it's a poor choice of word.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered, if a sannyasi leaves his ashram, it's considered like eating his vomit, but not for a brahmachari. So a brahmachari, he can become a grihasta, and there's no problem with that. But for a sannyasi, of course, Prabhupada gave sannyas to very young people, and many of them couldn't actually maintain it. And he then welcomed them back, say, "Oh, just get married then." But actually, the Vedic thing is, once a sannyasi, always, that's it, finished. Everything's finished, materially, socially. Yeah. But a brahmachari should also have the same mood, but he can also change if he feels the need, if the need is there. And of course, grihastas can be equally potent as preachers, but usually on a smaller scale within a particular locality and things. Although we do have some grihasta disciples of Prabhupada who are traveling widely and preaching, and there's not that much difference actually between them.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Any other points from the ladies' side? No. Okay. Oh, this is.
I just have a question about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya,
Yeah.
and if he was the guru of like the demigods.
Brihaspati.
Yes, Brihaspati.
Yeah.
How come he had an impersonal concept?
Well, it's not saying that. I mean, I don't know much about Brihaspati.
Yes.
But this is talking about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Well, it's a good question, actually. How come he did? Well, actually, he's attached to logic and reasoning. That was his whole scholarship, logic and reasoning. And Nyaya is basically, that's the most important thing. So he's impersonalist in that sense. But I mean, I also wanted to say, I mean, he's in Jagannath. He's taken Kshetra Sannyas in Jagannath Puri. You know, he's obviously very attached to Lord Jagannath. He has great culture. He, you know, he recognizes a great personality. He knows what to do with a great personality. You know, so he is actually a great personality himself. But in order to teach, in order for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach others by liberating him, then he's in this position of being a teacher of Nyaya, and which is basically impersonalism.
Thank you.
But I mean, you can read. We'll hear more about it in this. Yeah. Yes.
David's question.
Yeah.
When he was Brihaspati, he had a desire to teach Krishna.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 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 He actually a desire to teach Krishna himself.
All right.
So then, when Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya, then he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he instructed him for 7 days?
Yeah, instructed him, yeah.
Okay.
That's the
point.
reason.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Jai. Okay, we better finish there. Grantaraj Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.